A student's overview of the ageless wisdom was carefully compiled from the following books by Alice A. Bailey. A Treatise on Cosmic Fire. Esoteric Psychology, Volumes 1 and 2. Esoteric Healing. Esoteric Astrology. The Rays and the Initiations. Students are encouraged to download the free PDF version of this overview by following the link in the video's description, or to order a printed copy at cost from thebookpatch.com, but are advised to read the original, unabridged books in order to gain deeper insight into the ageless wisdom. Students are also invited to join our online study group at facebook.com/groups/students of the ageless wisdom. Chapter 54 Esoteric Healing. The Physical Anatomy of Man. Not much need be written here anent this, for the body nature and the form aspect have been the object of investigation and the subject of thought and discussion of thinking men for many centuries. Much at which they have arrived is basically correct. The modern investigator will admit the law of analogy as the basis of his premises and recognizes, sometimes, that the Hermetic theory, as above, so below, may throw much light on the present problems. The following postulates may serve to clarify. 1. Man, in his body nature, is a sum total, a unity. 2. This sum total is subdivided into many parts and organisms. 1. Yet these many subdivisions function in a unified manner, and the body is a correlated whole. 2. Each of its parts differs in form and in function, but all are interdependent. 3. Each part and each organism is, in its turn, composed of molecules, cells and atoms, and these are held together in the form of the organism by the life of the sum total. 4. The sum total called man is roughly divided into 5 parts, some of greater importance than others, but all completing that living organism we call a human being. A. The head. B. The upper torso, or that part which lies above the diaphragm. C. The lower torso, or that part lying below the diaphragm. D. The arms. E. The legs. 5. These organisms serve varied purposes, and upon their due functioning and proper adjustment the comfort of the whole depends. 6. Each of these has its own life, which is the sum total of the life of its atomic structure, and is also animated by the unified life of the whole, directed from the head by the intelligent will or energy of the spiritual man. 7. The important part of the body is that triple division, the head, upper and lower torso. A man can function and live without his arms and legs. 8. Each of these 3 parts is also triple from the physical side, making the analogy of the 3 parts of man's nature and the 9 of perfected monadic life. There are other organs, but those enumerated are those which have an esoteric significance of greater value than the other parts. A. Within the head are 1. The 5 ventricles of the brain, or what we might call the brain as a unified organism. 2. The 3 glands, carotid, pineal and pituitary. 3. The 2 eyes. B. Within the upper body are 1. The throat. 2. The lungs. 3. The heart. C. Within the lower body are 1. The spleen. 2. The stomach. 3. The sex organs. D. The sum total of the body is also triple. 1. The skin and bony structure. 2. The vascular or blood system. 3. The threefold nervous system. 9. Each of these triplicities corresponds to the three parts of man's nature. A. Physical nature. The skin and bony structure are the analogy to man's dense and etheric body. B. Soul nature. The blood vessels and circulatory system are the analogy to that all-pervading soul which penetrates to all parts of the solar system, as the blood goes to all parts of the body. C. Spirit nature. The nervous system, as it energizes and acts throughout the physical man, is the correspondence to the energy of spirit. 10. In the head we have the analogy to the spirit aspect, the directing will, the monad, the one. A. The brain with its 5 ventricles is the analogy to the physical form which the spirit animates in connection with man, the 5-fold sum total which is the medium through which the spirit on the physical plane has to express itself. B. The 3 glands in the head are closely related to the soul or psychic nature, higher and lower. C. The 2 eyes are the physical plane correspondences to the monad, who is will and love wisdom, or Atmabuddhi, according to the occult terminology. End of page 276. 11. In the upper body we have an analogy to the triple soul nature. A. The throat, corresponding to the 3rd creative aspect or the body nature, the active intelligence of the soul. B. The heart, the love wisdom of the soul, the Buddhi or Christ principle. C. The lungs, the analogy for the breath of life, is the correspondence to spirit. 12. In the lower torso again we have this triple system carried out. A. The sex organs, the creative aspect, the fashioner of the body. B. The stomach as the physical manifestation of the solar plexus is the analogy to the soul. C. The spleen, the receiver of energy and therefore the physical plane expression of the center which receives this energy, is the analogy to the energizing spirit. 13. In the upper body we have an analogy to the triple soul nature. A. The throat, corresponding to the 3rd creative aspect or the body nature, the active intelligence of the soul. B. The heart, the love wisdom of the soul, the Buddhi or Christ principle. C. The lungs, the analogy for the breath of life, is the correspondence to spirit. 14. In the lower torso again we have this triple system carried out. A. The sex organs, the creative aspect, the fashioner of the body. B. The stomach as the physical manifestation of the solar plexus is the analogy to the soul. C. The spleen, the receiver of energy and therefore the physical plane expression of the center which receives this energy, is the analogy to the energizing spirit. We have dealt with the 4 above: the diaphragm, the 3 centers through which the spiritual triad must eventually work, and the synthetic center, the ajna center, which finally expresses the integrated personality and becomes the direct agent of the soul. We now have 3 more centers to consider, all of them to be found below the diaphragm: the solar plexus center, the sacral center, and the center at the base of the spine. The most important for all aspirants at this time is the solar plexus center, the most active, generally speaking, in humanity as a whole, is still the sacral center, the most quiescent center in the body. From the angle of the spiritual man, is the basic center. 5. The solar plexus center. This is located well below the shoulder blades in the spine and is exceedingly active. In Atlantean days, it was brought to a high stage of development, just as in Aryan days, the throat center is being rapidly awakened. This center is peculiarly related to two other centers, the heart and the ajna center, and they form at this time an interesting triangle of energies in the human body and one which is receiving much attention from the hierarchy. There is a downflow of energy from the ajna center to the heart from the soul, just in so far as the aspirant is in touch with his soul. This leads to three things. A stimulation of the heart center. B. A responsive reaction from the heart which evokes a stimulation of the ajna center and produces eventually the recognition of group consciousness by the personality. C. The evocation of the heart center in the head. All this, however, is facilitated by the advanced development of the solar plexus in the aspirant, which has its own effect upon the heart and a reciprocal effect upon the ajna center. Just as there is, astrologically, a science of triangles, so there will later be developed a science of triangles in relation to the human system. But the time is not yet. I but give occasional indications of such a science upon which the intuition of disciples may play. End of page 277. 1. The solar plexus is a reflection in the personality of the heart of the sun just as the heart center is. It is the central factor in the life of the personality for all humanity below the grade of probationary disciple. At that point the mind definitely begins to function, however faintly. It is the outlet, if such a word can be used, of the astral body into the outer world, and the instrument through which emotional energy flows. It is the organ of desire. It is of supreme importance in the life of the average man, and its control is a vital goal for the aspirant. He must transmute desire into aspiration. 2. The solar plexus came into full functioning in Atlantean times, during the period wherein the second great human race was developing. These lower centers are not so specifically related to initiations as are the centers above the diaphragm, for they are personality centers and have to be under the full control of the soul when initiations of a certain degree are taken. 3. The solar plexus center is the great clearing house for all energies below the diaphragm. This refers to the three major centers and the minor centers which were enumerated earlier. The relation of this center to the astral plane is, to use a peculiar but most expressive word, acute. It is the recipient of all emotional reactions and of desire impulses and energies and, because humanity is today becoming active in a group sense and is more inclusive than ever before in human history, the situation is one of acute and extreme difficulty. Mankind, through the individual and also through the collective solar plexus, is being subjected to almost unendurable pressure. Such are the tests of initiation. 4. The solar plexus is the center in the etheric vehicle through which humanity, average, unenlightened humanity, lives and moves and has its being. Humanity is conditioned by desire, good desire, selfish desire, wrong desire, and spiritual desire. It is the center through which most of the energies flow, which make a man progressive because he is ambitious, selfish because his personal desires are of importance, and fluidic because astrally polarized. Through it the bright light generated in Atlantis is poured, and the astral light is contacted. It is therefore the center through which most mediums work and clairvoyants function. Later, these people will learn to work as intermediaries, consciously and intelligently using their powers. They will possess clear perception, and this will supersede clairvoyance. They will then be polarized in the ajna center. It is consequently a most disturbing center in the body, and is a basic cause of the majority of stomach complaints and troubles connected with the liver. The entire area immediately below the diaphragm is in a constant state of turmoil, where average man is concerned. This is due to individual and collective causes. It is interesting to note here that just as the ajna center, the synthesis of the personality forces, when highly developed, is a great directing and distributing agent, so the solar plexus center, the synthesis of the average developed personality energies, prior to the process of integration, is a center for collection, for a gathering in of all the lower energies, and is finally a focal point for the direction and distribution of these collected energies, remitting them to their receptive higher centers. A. The energies of the solar plexus center itself have to be directed to the heart center. B. The energies of the sacral center have to be transmitted to the throat center. C. The energies of the center at the base of the spine have to be transferred to the head center. After the third initiation, these basic energies are raised, controlled or distributed by an act of the will of the spiritual triad. Then the light generated in Lemuria, the sacral light, and the light generated in Atlantis, solar plexus light, will die out, and those two centers will simply be recipients of spiritual energies from on high. They will possess no direct, inherent light of their own. The light which they will transmit will come to them from collective sources on etheric planes. End of page 278. Here again appears the theme of a center of spiritual force, for astral force is spiritual in essence, and its three manifestations. All these three dense materializations are fed and nurtured by the forces and energies of the solar plexus center. I have here given a very important fact to those who are interested in the study of medicine from the esoteric angle. Rightly appreciated, it will lead to an understanding of the healing art. Control of the solar plexus center, and the right reception and release of the energies focused in that center would bring about a major purification, an intensive strengthening and a vital protection of the three vital organs to be found in that area of the human physical mechanism. It should be noted here that the transference of solar plexus energy per se is the task of all aspirants to the path of discipleship at this particular time, plus the gradual awakening of the heart center. The first members of the human family to become group conscious are naturally the aspirants and the disciples, and these set the pace for the rest of humanity. This they achieve through the pressure of life itself and of circumstances, and not by the following of set rules or specific meditations. Later, prior to a certain major initiation, such rules and measures may be applied so as to give the initiate immediate and conscious control over the astral body and its focal point of entry into the physical organism, the solar plexus center, and again at the time that certain major transferences are consciously made. Of these transferences there are three of primary importance: 1. From the 3 centers below the diaphragm into the heart, throat and ajna centers. 2. From the 2 centers above the diaphragm, the heart and throat centers, into the ajna center and the 1,000-petaled lotus of the head. 3. From the ajna center into the head center, signifying the complete unification of all the energies throughout the entire etheric body into one central focal point of distribution, under direct control of the spiritual triad. The processes involved in these 3 great experiences, each preceded by much testing and experiment, naturally put a strain upon the physical body and are the cause of many of the ills to which disciples fall. 1. The sacral center. This center is located in the lower part of the lumbar area and is a very powerful center, controlling as it does the sex life. One of the interesting things about this center is that it must always remain a powerful center until 2/3 of mankind have taken initiation, for the generative processes must go on and remain active in order to provide bodies for incoming souls. But as the race progresses, this center will be controlled and its activities will be carried forward intelligently and as the result of knowledge, of insight and of higher and subtler contacts, and not as the result of unlimited and uncontrolled desire, as is now the case. I can, however, bring to your attention what I have already written, and suggest that someone with the interest and the time should collect all I have said in all my books anent the subject of sex so that a pamphlet on the subject may be compiled. A. The sacral center corresponds to the physical sun, the source of vitality and the life-giving agent on our planet. B. The symbolism of the sacral center is concerned primarily with the gestation period prior to birth, and in its right understanding can be traced and expanded the whole story of conception, of form building, and this whether it is the physical form of a human being, the form of an idea, an organization built around a central truth, the form of a planet or of a solar system. It is perhaps above everything else the center through which the forces of impersonality must eventually express themselves, and the whole problem of dualism must be resolved. This solution and interpretation of the symbol must come from the realm of the mind, thereby controlling the physical reaction and occupying itself with purposes and not with desire. Ponder on this. When it is thus understood, then we shall be reaching the point where a great transference can take place into the higher center of creation, the throat center. End of page 279. C. The sacral center is therefore closely related to matter, and there is a flow of energy between 3 points. In the lower part of the human body. 1. The spleen, the organ of prana or of physical vitality coming from the sun. 2. The sacral center, the predisposing agent towards physical generation. 3. The center at the base of the spine which, until the will aspect is aroused in man, feeds the life-giving principle, the will to live, to all parts of the human frame. These create a great triangle of force, concerned with matter, with substance, form building, creation, vitality and persistence in form. This triangle is a reflection of a much higher one, composed of 1. The throat center, corresponding to the sacral center. 2. The pituitary body, corresponding to the splenic center. 3. The pineal gland, corresponding to the basic center. In the relation of these two triangles lies the clue to the instinct of self-preservation, the survival of the subtle bodies after death, and the principle of immortality which is seated in the soul and functions when self-preservation and survival no longer hold sway. This constitutes a triplicity of ideas which requires most careful study and which, if I might so express it, gives the key to the spiritualistic movement. D. The sacral center is also connected with the ajna center in the last analysis. The two together create a functioning duality which is productive of that subtle quality which we call personality. There is a wide field for investigation in the theme of personality as an integrated whole and in the quality of personality, which is the aroma, the influence, the effect and the radiation of a personality. I throw out these ideas to students, hoping that some research may follow which will relate this subject of the centers to the recognized facts of coordination, integration and their effects in producing greatness. For those of you who are students of the secret doctrine, there is much to be unfolded anent the relation of the lunar lords, the Barishad Pitris, to the solar lord or angel. The field of work of the former is the sacral center, par excellence, that of the solar angel is the throat center. E. The sacral center registers the energy of the third aspect of divinity, just as the solar plexus center registers that of the second aspect and the basic center expresses the energy of the first aspect. Here again you have the lower centers reflecting the throat, heart and head centers and thus completing the higher and the lower manifestation of the divine Trinity in man. This center was brought into full functioning activity in old Lemuria, the first human race. Its energy is that of the Holy Spirit, overshadowing virgin substance. F. The dense physical externalization of this center is to be found in the gonads, the human organs of generation, viewing them as a basic unity, though temporarily separated in the present dualistic expression of the human being. It must be remembered that this separation fosters a powerful impulse towards fusion, and this urge to blend we call sex. Sex is, in reality, the instinct towards unity, first of all, a physical unity. It is the innate, though much understood, principle of mysticism, which is the name we give to the urge to union with the divine. Like all else that undeveloped man has touched, we have perverted and distorted a divine idea and prostituted an immaterial urge to material desire. We have reversed the direction of the sacral energy, hence the overdeveloped animal nature and functions of average humanity. Healing as a group. The inability of even the most advanced human mind to grasp themes and subjects as a whole. The synthetic element is as yet lacking. At present, the teaching and processes involved must be mastered step by step, detail by detail, precept by precept, application by application. But the future holds the promise clear, and the ability of the human eye to function synthetically, to grasp a landscape, for instance, in its broad and salient outlines, and to do this simultaneously and in a flash of vision is the guarantee of the future technique of the race. One look by the illumined mind, one great radiation of love, and the healer or the healing group will know whether to heal, to aid the effort of the patient, a much slower process, or to refrain from healing. End of page 280. The inertia of the average man or woman, which rebels against the effort needed to master the technical side of healing. It is so much easier to fall back on divinity, a divinity in reality latent but not expressive, and let God do it. It is so much easier to recognize love and the outpouring of love than to master the processes whereby it can be made effective, or the nature of that which must be affected. These are points requiring careful attention and consideration. They merit reflection. The synthetic power of the mind, aided by true love, will someday be the instrument of all true healers. 7. The center at the base of the spine. This center is, above everything else, controlled and governed by the law of being, above referred to, and is established where spirit and matter meet and where matter, the Virgin Mary, under the influence of the Holy Spirit, time energy of the etheric vehicle, is translated into heaven there, as the Christian phraseology puts it, to be seated beside her Son in the house of the Father. This center is found at the very base of the spine, and supports all the other centers. It is relatively quiescent at this time, for it is only roused into full activity by an act of the will, directed and controlled by the initiate. It is responsive only to the will aspect, and the will to be in incarnation is the factor which at present controls its life and produces its effects as it feeds and directs the life principle in matter and form. Just as we are told that the life principle is seated in the heart, so the will to be is seated in the base of the spine. There has been much idle and dangerous talk anent this center, and the whole subject of the Kundalini fire has proved an exciting and enticing tale by the pseudo-occultists of the world. The true occultist in training has naught to do with the Kundalini fire, as usually understood. It is not possible for me to do more than make certain facts somewhat clearer to you, and yet at the same time I must refrain from indicating modes and methods of arousing the activity of this center, on account of the extreme danger involved in any premature work on the basic center. The best I can do is to make a series of statements which will be comprehended in the right way by those who know, and these are as yet few and far between, which will aid the thinking of those who are in training and give them a somewhat more complete picture, but which will protect the ignorant from disaster. I shall make these statements as clearly and briefly as possible, but shall give practically no explanatory matter with them. 1. This basic center is the point where, under the evolutionary law, spirit and matter meet, and life is related to form. 2. It is therefore the center where the essential dualism of the manifested divinity, man or planetary logos, meet and produce form. 3. The nature of this divinity is only revealed when the second aspect has accomplished its work, through the medium of the third aspect, but under the directing will of the first aspect. 4. It is the center where the serpent of God undergoes two transformations. A. The serpent of matter lies coiled. B. This serpent is transformed into the serpent of wisdom. C. The serpent of wisdom is translated and becomes the dragon of living light. 5. These three stages are nurtured by the life and energy pouring down through the entire length of the spinal column, via the etheric correspondence of the spinal cord, and, in time and space, this downpouring, plus the simultaneously uprising life, produces a. The awakening in a gradual and orderly manner of the centers, according to ray types. B. The reversal of the centers so that the consciousness of the indwelling man is adequate to his environment. C. The synthesis of the life energies of all the centers, and adequacy to the demands of the initiate and the service of the hierarchy and of humanity. End of page 281. 6. The spinal column, from the angle of the esoteric sciences, houses a threefold thread. This is the externalization of the antakarana, composed of the antakarana proper, the sutratma or life thread, and the creative thread. This threefold thread within the spinal column is therefore composed of three threads of energy which have channeled for themselves in the substance of the interior of the column a threefold way of approach and of withdrawal. These are called in the Hindu terminology, the Ida, the Pingala and the Sushumna paths, and they together form the path of life for the individual man and are awakened into activity sequentially and according to ray type and the point of evolution. The Sushumna path is not used correctly and safely until the antakarana has been built and the monad and personality are thereby related, even if it is only by the most tenuous thread. Then the monad, the father, the will aspect, can reach the personality in a direct manner, and can arouse the basic center, and with it blend, unify and raise the three fires. 7. One of these paths is the one along which the energy which feeds matter is poured. Another is related to the path of consciousness and of sensitive psychic unfoldment. The third is the path of pure spirit. Thus in every living form the work of the Father, of the Mother and of the Son is carried on. Life consciousness form and life quality appearance are blended, and the response apparatus of the divine man is perfected, enabling him to contact and recognize the major divine aspects in the kingdoms in nature, in the planet and in the solar system, eventually. 8. These three paths of life are the channels for electric fire, solar fire and fire by friction, and are related in their usage to the three stages of the path of evolution, the path of evolution in the material, earlier stages, the path of probation, and the early stages of the path of discipleship until the third initiation, and the path of initiation itself. 9. The Kundalini fire, about which so much is taught and written in the East, and increasingly in the West, is in reality the union of these three fires, which are focused by an act of the enlightened will, under the impulse of love, in the basic center. This unified fire is then raised by the use of a word of power, sent forth by the will of the monad, and by the united authority of the soul and personality, integrated and alive. The human being who can do this in full consciousness is therefore an initiate who has left the third initiation behind him. He, and he alone, can safely raise this triple fire from the base of the spine to the head center. As usually interpreted by the ignorant esotericist in the various occult groups, the Kundalini fire is something which must be raised, and when it is raised all the centers will then come into functioning activity and the channels up and down the spine will be cleared of all obstruction. This is a dangerous generalization and a reversal of the facts. The Kundalini fire will be raised and carried up into heaven when all the centers are awakened and the channels up the spine are unimpeded. This removal of all obstruction is the result of the livingness of the individual centers which, through the potency of their life, themselves are effective in destroying all hindrances and obstructions. They can burn up all that hinders their radiation. 10. What usually happens in those accidental cases, which do so much harm, is that the aspirant, through his ignorant curiosity and by an effort of the mind, not of the spiritual will, but purely as an expression of personality will, succeeds in arousing the lowest of the three fires, the fire of matter, fire by friction. This produces a premature burning and destroys the etheric web in the etheric body. These circular discs or webs are to be found between each pair of the centers up the spine and also in the head. They are normally dissipated as purity of life, the discipline of the emotions, and the development of the spiritual will are carried forward. End of page 282. There are 4 of these webs. When the fourfold personality is highly developed and the ajna center is awakening, then these webs slowly and gradually, normally and automatically disappear. The webs in the head are of much higher quality and bisect the skull horizontally and vertically. Thus they symbolize the cross upon which a Son of God is crucified. 11. The 3 channels up the spine are responsive in their totality to the 3 major centers. A. To the solar plexus center, providing thus the impulse of desire and feeding the physical life and the creative urge. B. To the heart center, providing the impulse to love and to conscious contact with ever-widening areas of divine expression. C. To the head center, providing the dynamic impulse of the will to live. 12. The 3 centers in the head are also related to this triple channel. A. The medulla oblongata area, the outer major center, and the carotid gland. B. The ajna center and the pituitary body. C. The 1000-petaled lotus and pineal gland. Another synthesis is also possible and of importance. A. Path of evolution centers below the diaphragm. B. Path of discipleship centers above the diaphragm. C. Path of initiation centers in the head. 13. There is also, again in relation to all the above points of synthesis in the body, one consummating point of complete fusion. I give each of these in the sequence of their work of fusion. A. The solar plexus center, fusing the centers below the diaphragm. B. The ajna center, fusing centers both above and below the diaphragm. C. The base of the spine, fusing all 6 centers. D. The 1000-petaled lotus of the head, fusing all the 7 energies. End of chapter 54.